I know going into sailing life, we had ideas of what it would be like, and it's interesting is it's not the things that we prepared for that have ended this dream sooner than expected. It's not living in tight quarters, it's not the lack of resources, it's not the difficulty of provisioning. It's what some of those things look like after a year that made us realize, no, I don't want to keep doing this. Welcome aboard. You're on Lady Grey. Pull up a seat and listen in to an unscripted, unedited conversation between two seminary-trained published authors who have been married 20 years and still love talking together. We are looking for treasure and sharing what we find through conversations while we sail the world on our catamaran, Lady Grey. And we are in Florida. We made it back to the United States, and we want to talk about culture shock with you, and we want to talk about some news about our sailing life with you this episode. Man, this heat is really intense. It's such a humid day in Florida today. Isn't this so much hotter than anywhere we've been?
This is so much hotter. It's so weird how lovely and cool the Bahamas
I know, it was so
was.
It
And
was
I'm
so
like, oh,
crazy.
good,
It was even cold. I remember wearing my fleece in the Bahamas. In my mind, Bahamas is not a cool place, like cold.
everywhere in the Caribbean all the way up. Granted, it was the middle of winter, but this is the hottest place we've been.
Hands down, without a doubt.
Central Florida on the coast. We're in Rocket City. We're at Cape Canaveral is where we're filming this from. And we visited Kennedy Space Center yesterday, and we're planning on watching a rocket launch tonight.
And it is May, and we are getting closer to summer. And I
the
know,
love bugs are out,
yeah, they're
which I haven't
everywhere.
seen in years.
Having a boat makes you much more aware of dirt and bugs and just the climate. We were talking about how much the boat has really held up well, but it starts to show wear and of course rust, and you're always fighting those elements. But if the boat is starting to show some signs of wear, we certainly are showing signs of wear being in the sun. I've never been this tan.
I never have either. I'm terrified to face my dermatologist again.
I'm a little nervous for you too.
Dermatologist is going to be like, "What were you doing? You were doing evil things."
And we do wear
hanging
sunscreen,
hanging out outside.
There's really no place to go unless you stay inside the boat all the time.
Honestly, I'm feeling great. I don't think I've been sunburned at all in this entire journey, and I'm really, really tanned.
Slow.
I'd like to say that this is just stored up vitamin D.
Slow roasting.
And that dermatologists, get paid to find problems.
Stored up vitamin D. You can spend this the next 5 years. Well, how did you feel going from, first South Africa, then the Caribbean, and then the Bahamas, and then we sailed right into Fort Lauderdale. How did you feel about that?
This is a good question, because I want to say that when it comes to the Caribbean and the Bahamas, hands down, the Bahamas are amazing compared to the rest of the Caribbean. So if you're thinking of doing a trip down to the Caribbean and you're thinking, I wonder where I should go to the Bahamas. If you like pristine, clear waters, beaches everywhere, and lovely breezes, Bahamas is where it's at. It's amazing.
Better water in the Bahamas.
Yes.
Very clear.
And if you're on a boat, it makes sense why so many live-aboard cruisers spend their winters in the Bahamas.
Yeah,
the Bahamas are so friendly to it.
And there's so much to explore.
A gazillion islands. You could tuck in anywhere. The weather's good.
Like thousands and thousands of islands.
Thousands.
And we went to the most unpopulated areas, the Raggeds and Exuma chain, and spent a month in those areas. And so we saw a lot less people, and we provisioned up in the Dominican Republic. So we didn't have the downside of the Bahamas to deal with, which is difficulty getting fresh, good food. So I say go travel. We're saying go travel to the Bahamas if you want to go to the Caribbean, if you like white sandy beaches and that aquamarine colored water.
Unreal.
But in terms of grocery shopping, if you're like an Airbnb type of traveler, it is very expensive to get normal things like fresh fruits and vegetables.
But it was the same price as Grenada, so that's way down in the Caribbean. And I just want to say that if you have to choose between the two of them,
that's true.
But the gem in all of this really was our stopover in Dominican Republic. And if I were to go back to a place, if there was a place of all places we visited throughout the Caribbean,
yeah,
that were like, you know what, I want to go back and I want to stay there for a month.
I want to explore it more.
Dominican Republic. That was a special, surprising place to me.
It was very friendly people. A lot of Christians in Dominican Republic, people who are fervent followers of Jesus, and it shows in their culture.
There was a friendliness, an openness, a humility. It really stood out.
There's not a pretentious self-importance there, and there's not a tourist trap price gouging feel at all. Not at all. I mean, it is more difficult as a cruiser to move around in Dominican Republic, but I'm glad we did it.
The rest of the Caribbean price gouged because of tourism.
Except for Martinique and Guadeloupe.
Not the French islands. Those were
I
lovely.
really enjoyed those too.
I did too.
And what's funny is now we're here in Florida and we're surrounded by 3 French boats and a Swiss boat. So we are surrounded by non-native to America friends.
Yeah, these are friends that have become buddy boats. So while you're sailing, for those of you who don't know, when you're sailing along, you just by chance encounter end up sharing anchorages or bumping into each other because of your location. And we met them in the Ragged Islands because all of us were out running a storm from Dominican Republic, and we spent a week in this windy spot in the Ragged Islands in the Bahamas. And we got to know each other and found out we really like this group of people. So when we had to come over to Fort Lauderdale for some repairs and warranty, they went on their way. We parted in tears and hugs and goodbyes. And then, but we were still in touch. And then they said, hey, we're going to be swinging up this way at this date. We're like, you know what? I think we could pull that off. So we left Fort Lauderdale a day early and met up with them and did Kennedy Space Center yesterday. And we're going over to St. Augustine with them this weekend. So
it's very fun to be a buddy boat with someone you can see on the map, because in the night watches you can see them, you can kind of try and race each other, you can do the lock system together, and it just is another pair of eyes in a very potentially lonely experience of sailing, having to be the one who's always looking at the weather. Do you like comparing notes with other people about the weather and kind of...
I always like getting feedback on it to make sure I didn't miss anything. But what I love most about buddy boats is that it's a little tiny community that you're forming, and everybody has a different idea of what they want to do in an area, and that's really nice because some people have the gift of event planning.
Yes.
Or say, we want to do this, and it may not have even been on your mind. You're like, I didn't even know that was here. We're going. And the kids, because they all have kids as well, so all the kids can play and hang out and do that. So that to me is
the best part.
Gold, and the best part of cruising is having friends to share it with.
And that, I mean, that is part of, well, we can talk a little bit about some of the downsides of cruising in a moment, but can we share just a little bit of how we felt leaving the Bahamas, Bimini.
Yeah.
We went straight from Bimini.
Don't stay in Bimini. Didn't like that place.
To Fort Lauderdale. And I was praying and thinking and preparing myself for the culture shock,
I was too. Honestly, I was expecting all of the political activism to be in my face, because it's been such a relief not to see it everywhere. And I remember when we left, I was seeing it everywhere. So I was bracing myself for that. But coming in...
Yeah, especially the sexual political activism that I'm always trying to protect our boys from. We didn't see that anywhere in our travels, except in Puerto Rico. We saw a little bit of it there.
Some of the American influence is happening there. So it was neat as we were approaching Fort Lauderdale coming in that Ollie was looking out on the bow, and he saw the skyline first.
Yeah, he did.
And that was really neat.
Eyes.
We're like, that's it. That's home. Not Fort Lauderdale itself, but those are our shores. That's the shores of my homeland. I feel like, some sort of a sailor from the days of old. The shores of my homeland. The motherland is there. And it was so exciting to me.
It was the high rises of Miami, which of course for us, for Dale and I, we are not big fans of urban life, but it was exciting to you. Tell me why.
Because it's my homeland. It was just a wonderful moment after being gone a year on this journey so far, and all that we've seen and where we've gone, and how we have traced every wave of the entire South Atlantic to get up to this point. We have crisscrossed the very paths of the Magellans and the Christopher Columbuses. And coming to that shore and seeing those buildings, it was like, that's it, I'm home. And part of home is about understanding a culture. Part of home is, this is where, this is the place that has shaped me. And I have a lot of, good memories of that. And it's also the place where I know the resources are for me. And even more than that is like the impression we got after we landed, but I didn't want to get into that yet. That was just my first impression, the excitement of arriving at home. It was really overwhelming. Did you feel overwhelmed, or did you feel kind of nervous about it?
I just felt all of the typical, okay, we're getting into a big city center. It's going to be a little bit stressful. We got to find this anchorage. We got to connect with the marina. We got to get into our slip, and we have to get all these certain things done to repair our boat. And I just felt sort of like the stress of that. I was not excited, and I was not worried about America. I was just focusing on the task. It wasn't until...
So it wasn't symbolic to you yet? Until
we got close to the ICW, the Intercoastal Waterway, and we started pulling in, and I saw the high rises, and it felt just like everything I was looking at had been thought through and sculpted and touched and ordered by humans. It was like being with people for weeks who don't ever brush their hair, and then going to a place where everyone's hair is brushed and coiffed and styled. It's like, oh, it's
something changed.
Something really, people really care here about things looking nice. And then, I mean, the abundance of Fort Lauderdale's massive shipping industry, tankers and tugboats and huge
ships.
Pallets of all these containers they were loading them on ships the whole time we were there. I just felt blown like back on my heels by the abundance of resources to create enough, more than enough, flowing over enough, just an extreme amount of good things, and more than we could ever want. But I didn't feel shame about that. I didn't feel like, oh, these Americans, they're so wasteful. I've heard people say that when they come back to the United States. I didn't feel that at all. I just was like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad a country like the USA exists. I'm so grateful for millionaires and billionaires who take their energy and create these companies that make our lives so much better. I'm so thankful that somebody had the foresight and the knowledge to order all these resources into like a very clean system to get them on ships and buses and tankers, and just get these things to us that we need, because it's been a year of having such a hard time finding things, finding resources. And then when we got our did we take an Uber? No, we dinghied over to the grocery store, and that was also like,
the grocery store was like walking into, a little tiny taste of heaven. It was cool because it was a Publix.
Everything you'd want.
It was a Publix, and which are all over Florida, and it had its own dinghy dock, which was very unique. It was huge, and you walk down the aisles and you recognize the brands. Of course, when you start recognizing things, that's always a sense of comfort, right? Because we spent a whole year not recognizing brands.
And sometimes not being able to read them.
But when you walk through that store, and it wasn't just brand recognition, it was just the sheer abundance of things. Like, look how many different kinds of chips we could choose from if we even wanted these. But if we wanted them, here they are. Granola bars galore. Look at that candy section. I haven't seen so many different kinds of chocolates or so many different countries, at one place in so long. You walk down, look at the dairy section. Look at all the meats you could choose from. And then the pricing. Look how inexpensive it is. I know we've had inflation. I know it's more expensive than before, but it's less expensive than almost every place we have been. And the quality was better. All of it was just, oh my word. I am so thankful that this exists. We have, in the USA, an amazing opportunity and abundance all around us that we just take for granted. And because our media airwaves are so loud with blame and shame, which is usually the typical tactics of abusers, so much blame and shame that it's easy to lose sight of the fact that you're alive and you have medicine and you have food, and even more than that, you have choices. That was a sense of gratitude I had, that I don't want to lose that vision, and being away for so long has really helped me help me see. I didn't see it as consumerist or materialist. And sure, we can always drill down and say, well, that's because it's consumerist. And be like, yeah, maybe, but it's also amazingly abundant. And if you're not captured by consumerism and you can just revel in having good choices, then that's something to be thankful for.
I agree with you. When I was going through the milk aisle, I was like, oh my gosh. I remember when I used to buy grass milk. I remember when I was like, oh my gosh, I'm only gonna buy meat from animals that are eating grass, no corn, and I'm only doing organic, and I'm only doing, all these ways I tried to
Grass
eat more
milk.
clean.
Tastes
Do you remember?
gamey.
Do you remember when we used to do
Tastes
that?
gamey, yeah.
And
funny.
I saw the option for grass milk, and I was like, heck no! Why would I be drinking that? And here's what I've come to realize.
I want to hear about that, but go
yeah,
ahead.
it was a change in thinking. I care very deeply about health. Some of my deepest woundings as a child are surrounding health. And so my goal as an adult is to make sure I can provide a healthy family culture for you and the boys. And that includes not just food, but medical attention too.
Mm-hmm.
So when I had the option of eating what was being sold to me as cleaner products, I was like, well, why wouldn't you do that?
Yeah.
Then leaving and going on this trip where it's not a question of whether or not you're going to get grass milk. It's a question of, do they have any milk? Do they have any yogurt?
Yeah.
Probably not. You have box milk. If you're lucky, you have box milk. And then hearing those older messages like box milk has all these additives and stabilizers, and why would you be drinking that? And it's so bad for you. When you are so far, literally geographically, from anything like fresh dairy, box milk is a luxury, and you're so grateful for it because you can make yogurt from starter that you still have in your fridge, and you can make brownies from it, and you can have cereal. And so I've realized so many ailments that Americans have, we can trace them to food if we want, and it gives us a measure of control because, if I just don't eat that, I can be healthy.
If there were organics on it, then I'll be okay.
Yeah, to me, it's a really easy, slippery slope to go down, and thinking that if I control my food, I'm going to be healthy. I actually think the reason there are so many diseases in America, autoimmune especially, is because our bodies are turning against us, and I think stress and not understanding anxiety and how to live in a very high-strung world has come out as health issues. And living on the boat has given me this huge crash course in facing anxiety. And I don't have all the quote-unquote clean food to face it with. I've had to face it with some really old-looking carrots and box milk, etc.
You would think that you would be feeling worse based on that, but you were able to locate that some of the reasons you didn't feel well, it wasn't because you had better or worse milk. You felt well because you were in a different environment and you were having to think through different issues, and as we've talked about with sailing often, it's almost like a monastery where you're just kind of forced to face yourself and you have the time to reflect on your life. And so the stresses change, and the stresses are the things you start focusing on and managing. Say, why am I stressed about this? And what is this about myself? And why am I high strung here? And why am I controlling there? Why am I anxious about this? And your overall quality of health has improved, if I'm hearing you correctly.
You're hearing me absolutely correctly. I don't feel as dependent on clean food for my health.
Mm-hmm. And it doesn't mean clean food isn't great, obviously. I wish everything was heirloom quality. But you're right, I think a lot of it is overblown.
It can become an obsession that creates stress that ends up leading to more disease, is what I'm trying to say.
I can't find organic, guys. I'm feeling worse by the second.
That's where Americans, many very affluent Americans are at. They do not see the luxury that we have in front of us. And it's just so much easier to buy grass milk than to ask ourselves, why are we doing too much?
I think you're right. I think that, when I mentioned the messaging we're always getting pounded with on the airwaves, I think is part of this. Because a lot of the places we visited, their lives are simple. They are get up in the morning and we go do some work, and the pace of our life is slower, We spend more time with friends. Like when you go to St. Helena, they barely even have internet there. They don't even have credit cards. It's like, did that changes and shape something about you versus if you have Amazon at your fingertips all the time, that shapes something about you. If you're always, plugged into social media because you have the internet, or you always have, your big fancy TV screen, you don't want that to go to waste, so you got to watch your favorite news programs. You're just constantly piping in an artificial world into your life, and your soul is not equipped to handle the artificial world. It's only equipped to handle the real world. And most places we go are people, everyday people, engaging in the real world with a lot fewer choices, a lot worse medical practices that are available to them, but a lot of them just seemed happier and less stressed. And yes. I think that was great to rub off on us, because when we come up to a dinghy dock, it's not like, okay, we're at the dinghy dock, we just got off, now we're going to grab our fancy car and drive really fast down the road to this next thing because I have appointments to make or whatever. It was, no, you get off the dinghy dock and you walk. Where do you walk? I have my map out and we walk and walk.
You get
off
off the dinghy dock and you spend 15-20 minutes just tying it up properly so it doesn't like get stuck on something or scratched and banged
That's
up.
true.
So like everything in boat life takes so
Three
much
times
longer
than you were planning.
So
I gotta say to those listening, my family gets so annoyed with me. They used to get it. They're less annoyed now. Now they actually participate.
I did,
They used to get
and I defended you yesterday to our French friends who were like, "Is the boat okay, Dale? Is the dinghy okay?" Go ahead.
Our French friends all have inflatable boats. So anyway, and mine's not inflatable, so I have to treat it with more care when it comes to bumping off of giant wooden pillars. So anyway, so when you pull up to park your dinghy, park your little tiny boat at a dock or on a beach or anything, to me, I always have to be mindful of, okay, we're going to tie it up here, and then I want to sit and I want to watch how it behaves. Because a lot of places we tie up, there are surges where the waves are coming in and in and in and in and in. So imagine your boat hitting a dock over and over and over and over. It's not made to do that. It will destroy it. And it may even be a calm dock, and everybody's like, it's calm, look how calm the day is. Yeah, but you just docked next to a boat lane, and so there's boats coming and going, creating an artificial swell that makes your boat bang and bang and bang and bang and bang against the dock. So what I would always do is tie it up, and then I'd sit and watch. I'd watch for like 2 or 3 minutes, 4 or 5 minutes, depends. It all depends. How is my boat behaving? Are the lines that I tied on, are they holding? Because I'm about to walk away from my boat for 4 hours. And when I return to the boat, I want it to be in exactly the same condition that I left it, unless another human being got involved and was doing damage. And so that's what I would do. And sometimes I found that I needed to tie it up better, or I needed to move a fender around, or I needed to put out called a stern anchor, and to hold it back away from the dock to protect it, whatever. And guess what? It always works when I take my time. And the family was annoyed at first, but now when we tie it up, the family all sits there and watches and gives suggestions, and once it's good, we all look at each other and we're like, is it good? Looks good to me. Looks good to me. All right, let's go on an adventure. And I don't think about it. Otherwise, I do.
Well, this is what sailing life has given us, is a chance to see how each other work to perform in our best way. And Dale and Finn you guys do not perform well when you're rushed. And what I'm learning is, even though Ollie and I are the rushers, we don't perform very well when we're rushed either.
Yeah, I sometimes I'm a rusher too, and I'm like, we have a goal here. Why is everybody delaying? I get it.
Thank you for identifying with the rushers of the family.
But you're right. When we're rushing, and sailing life has really helped us with that. You can do nothing quickly, and sometimes it's super aggravating. And going slowly is not always good either. I just want to say that.
Yeah, I know.
Sometimes it's just aggravating. But if it's all you got, it's all you got. And you learn contentment, and you try to come up with other solutions in the middle of it. Going too slow. What can we do? Put up a different sail, turn on the engines, change our course.
We have some friends right across from us here who asked us, how fast can we go under, like, what's the least amount of wind where our boat will still move? And we're like, what do you mean? They're like, well, like, can your boat move in 3 knots of wind? And
like, can you still sail?
Yeah, so not with the motors. Like, the sails work with just 3 knots of wind.
4 knots is an example, yes.
Okay, and we were like, we have no idea, because if we're not going at least 5 knots, we put the motors on because it's too exasperating to go. It's basically 5 miles an hour,
They'll
guys.
text us in the middle of the night
5 miles an hour across the ocean. Or, like, for example...
It's like walking across the ocean. I mean, do a speed walk down your street right now and thinking, I'm sailing.
That's how fast you go. 5 miles. That's why it takes 4 weeks to cross the ocean. So slowness is a real way of life.
You too can speed walk the ocean. It is a way of life. But coming into Fort Lauderdale was lovely. The abundance was lovely.
I felt impressed. I felt really proud of America. I felt.
I mean, look what you can do.
I wanted to like shake people and say, "Do you realize what you have? Do you realize how good your grocery store is? Why aren't you happier?"
Look what you could do in a deregulated, overarchingly deregulated and decentralized society. We could be much more deregulated and decentralized, but look what you could do with it. Because every single thing that was made, everywhere we've been, once we hit the U.S. shores, are all put there because somebody decided to take the risk to say, I need to build this and it will have value to me. And I'm taking the risk to do it. And they do it. And it does have value. And it doesn't always work, but most of the time it does. Whereas if you have a central planning type of society, it's like, oh, look, we have this abundant amount of money we extracted from taxes, for taxes from people, and we're just going to build this cool apartment building. And be like, well, where are you going to build it? Over here because it looks nice. You're like, but that's not where anybody wants to take a risk to build that. So you haven't done the whole market study and realize there's even a need over there. You hear about that kind of stuff in China sometimes. They'll build entire apartment complexes and then a few years later tear them down because they've been sitting empty the whole time. All because the government builds them. It's not because individuals did. But when you look around at our society, individuals and teams of individuals all decided to pool their resources together, their energy, their money, their labor to make something.
Yeah, it is very impressive.
And to cooperate and to get along. It's just, oh man, it just stands out.
And being on the boat has made me realize how difficult it is for humans to work together for a goal, and how just our families had to overcome so many things to work together. And when I went to, we went to the Kennedy Space Center yesterday, and seeing how much teamwork has to happen to get a rocket to launch, or to get that telescope to launch, I feel very impressed with the perseverance and the focus of these groups. And I also realize how many forces are working against you when you do anything as a team. So I think I have more humility and respect for all that America has done.
I'm so thankful we get to participate in it.
Yeah, me too.
Not take from it. Participate in it.
Yeah, that's a good verb. I like that.
Okay. Let's transition to that. You mentioned we have an announcement.
Yeah, our announcement is connected to sailing life and what it's done to us. And there have been so many good things, but we have come unanimously together as a family and agreeing that 1 year of full-time sailing life is all the Fincher family wants or needs.
Yes, is all we needed. It did everything for us that we wanted it to do.
Yeah, a good way to say it is we do not think going past a year the juice is not worth the squeeze for us.
Yeah, that's right. We have other interests and other opportunities, and we're excited about seizing those as well.
Yeah, now that's the nice, tidy answer that we would give to someone who asks, but because you are listening to us on our podcast, we definitely want to go a little deeper into explaining
the pros
why,
and cons.
How this happened.
And our perspective of living on a sailboat.
Yeah.
Because everybody who lives on a sailboat has a perspective.
They do. And it's really important that you guys know that this is just ours, and there's a lot of YouTube channels where you can see that sailing life is the best thing on earth. And we do not agree with that assessment, but we do
Might be the best thing for them.
Agree. That's true. We do agree that it teaches an awful lot. I know going into sailing life, we had ideas of what it would be like, and it's interesting is it's not the things that we prepared for that have ended this dream sooner than expected. It's not living in tight quarters, it's not the lack of resources, it's not the difficulty of provisioning. It's what some of those things look like after a year that made us realize, no, I don't want to keep doing this. For me, a good example is cooking. One of the things I was so excited to do was to cook and to paint all over the world. And cooking requires that you have access to good quality food. And I don't mean grass milk. I mean just like vegetables that exist.
Fresh food.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it is quite difficult to find food that is fresh, that's close enough to your boat that you don't have to get an Uber to drive.
Most places don't have Ubers.
Yep.
And that's it's
also
another
true.
one of those luxuries, the ability to say, I need a ride and go get one. Most places don't have any of that.
And just the communicating clearly. Like when we got into our Uber here in Florida, the guy who was driving us, he looked Hispanic. And I was like, oh, we have to get ready because he's not going to speak English. And I forgot as soon as we got in, he started speaking English with no accent. I'm like, oh, that's right. We're in America. People speak English. And it was another one of those culture shocks of relief and gladness. But yeah, there's a lot of places you get to, they're like, oh, there's no Ubers here. Even places that are supposedly
There were no
really...
Ubers anywhere but Puerto Rico. No other
And in Puerto
place.
Rico, it was only by San Juan in that area.
That's right.
Once you went to the south and the west, you couldn't.
Everything's on foot.
So I actually have had a much harder time cooking unique food from different cultures because it's been so difficult to get that food. I'm making good enough food for us and we're healthy, but it's nowhere like I had hoped.
And a lot of the foods are, even when we do find them, they're the same. Just like iceberg lettuce, romaine lettuce, broccoli, carrots, bell peppers. So much of it is the same. I honestly expected there to be more unique things. I think it's all the basic things are just prepared in unique ways. That might be one way that different.
Well, the spices were different, like in terms of access. So I found in South Africa you could get certain foods more easily, and when we were in the West Indies, the Caribbean, that's the Spice Islands, I could get cheaper vanilla extract or cinnamon. But in terms of their native vegetables and fruits, I went into grocery stores thinking, I'm just going to buy all the native stuff, the native roots and vegetables, the native fruits. I tried all of those things. And they were so unappetizing. It made me so sad for earlier people groups who didn't have our fruits and vegetables in America are so sweet and so tasty and so large that the types
and
of
it can even
roots,
be better, right? We already know that, we know where to get even better blueberries and better raspberries.
Yes.
They went to the grocery store.
Yes, we do.
But it's still,
Like
even by
the
comparison,
farmer,
even like our mediocre stuff is still outstanding compared to so many places.
That's what I'm trying to say. Like they would have in these grocery stores all the stuff they imported from the United States that was really expensive, and then they'd have like the native, like potatoes or yams or fruits that I never even noticed. And I would buy those. I would buy from farmers markets, and we'd bring it home and we'd eat it, and we'd be like, "What is wrong with this?" And guys, I know my way around a kitchen enough to know how to prepare it well.
She does.
But the fruits and the vegetables that are native to these places are so low in standard of taste compared to what we're used to as Americans.
And we're not even speaking as, well, we just took what we like and now we're comparing. This is a common problem you'll hear.
Yeah.
It's like, well, you're familiar with your culture, so now you're comparing all the other cultures to yours, and you're making judgments about them. And I want to say that is a common problem people have. You find your favorite foods and then you compare everything. I mean, kids have that issue all the time.
Right.
I really like my Frosted Flakes, so now that you're going to give me a classic English breakfast, that's disgusting.
Right.
Like, well, that's because your tastes are shaped around something else.
You need to cultivate taste for it.
But we have a wide variety of tastes. We have done a lot of travel. We appreciate trying the new things and entering in and giving the benefit of the doubt and trying to make new discoveries. Those are things we actually value. So when we're making that
I'm glad you shared
that kind of when we're relaying our experience, is not just coming at it from a one-sided angle.
We're not eating white bread with peanut butter and jelly every day
and then criticizing French artisan bread.
No, that's not what's going on. I think it is a dicey for me to go into this and be critiquing other people's culture's food because it sounds so like, oh my gosh, who do you think you are? But I think what was important for me is to point out is that if I saw a dish prepared, let's say in Dominican Republic that I liked, I would talk to the restaurant's cook, or I would talk to the taco market's chefs, and I would ask them how they prepared it, and I would go and get those ingredients, and I would try and make plantains their way.
Oh, the plantains were a real winner.
Try the thing. So we did find some foods that were like, oh, this is so unique. I wish we could get this back at home, and we're not going to be able to. Let's enjoy it. So there were some experiences like that. Mm-hmm. But there were a lot of experiences that were sad to me. And it reminded me of my grandmother, who was raised in Mexico City, when she would talk about how hungry she would be and how hard it was for her to find food. And I know if we were to continue sailing and we made our way to Japan or Thailand or places in Europe, there would be more access to some of the foods along the coast because there's more coastal cities there. And that does feel like we're letting that go, that dream of going to places along the coast and
that ties
finding
into some
those.
other reasons we're letting it go too.
But the food piece, the disappointment of getting good food is only one of many things that were a disappointment.
Yeah, let's talk about some other disappointments.
Yeah, why don't you share one?
Well, when you say the juice isn't worth the squeeze, let me tell you, it is so much work to try to move and to find locations that you want to be in. So you'll be going along and cruising along, you might find an island or a location or a port. And you get there and you're like, okay, I see what's going on here. You know, went ashore, we kind of checked it out. We're like, I don't really like this spot. It's just not that great. Well, where's the next spot? Well, the next spot we want to try is, you know, a full day sail in that direction. Like we just did a full day sail yesterday to get to this spot. So do we want to turn around and do another full day sail tomorrow? Because this is a lot. Sailing is a lot of work. You're dealing with the sails, you're dealing with the waves and the wind, the weather, the food provisioning, all of it, the comfort of the crew, and all the unexpected things that happen as you chart your way.
And because our family gets so seasick, we can't do any homeschool on passage.
So it takes a whole day of school out, and everybody's just hunkered down whenever you do it. And then you get to the next one, you're like, you know, this isn't all that great either. How many more little things do you do as you jump from one to the next to the next? You get to anchorages, you're like, oh, I'm so excited to be at the next anchorage. I'm so excited to go swimming. And then you get to the anchorage, and the water is so silty and opaque. And
or
you're
there's
like,
bull sharks.
Yeah, and you're like, I don't know if I'm
people
gonna...
are dumping gross stuff.
People have been living in the harbor for a while, and you know they're dumping their black tanks in the harbor against all rules and ethics, but they're doing it, and they're like, I don't want to swim here. I don't even want to be here. Where do we go to the next spot? So it's the idea that it takes so much effort. Oh, and then on the other side of that is you're boxed in by weather. When weather's good, you're like, sweet, let's go. Weather's not always good. It could change from day to day to day, and it's not just the wind, not just the clouds, not just the rain, because you can go in wind, rain, and clouds. It's the waves. How big are these waves that we're going to be sailing through, and how comfortable is it going to be, and what kind of storms are up ahead, and what big weather patterns. Anyway, all that gets stacked up, and you're like, you know what, to get to where I want to be requires so much work. You have to get used to the idea of being where you don't want to be.
Feeling stuck. You do feel stuck a lot.
A lot.
And that is something that I think gives birth to YouTube channels, because I think so many sailors feel stuck at anchorages where they don't want to be, that they turn that into creativity to say, well, I'm going to make the most of the pictures and the videos that I've taken of the places I did want to be, or I'm going to try to make them appear better or bigger than I even can remember them, just so I have something to hold on to. Because you do have these amazing days, really high days, but you also have so many places you feel like, I can't get out of here soon enough, and nothing around me is what I expected or wanted.
So I'm ready to move on, but I can't.
Yeah.
You'll be at anchorages where you can't go ashore. Like we've been at somewhere like, well, where do we park the boat? There's a grocery store right over there, but where do we park the boat?
Yeah.
You can't park it on that rocky shoreline.
The dinghy, meaning the dinghy.
Parking the dinghy. Can't do it there because there's rocks there. You can't do it over there. It's a private dock. Can't do it over here. Like, what do we do? Do you just anchor it down in the middle of the harbor and swim in? Yes, that's fine, but that's a grocery store. How are you going to get it from the grocery store back onto the dinghy? You can't swim with all your groceries. Those kinds of scenarios are very real scenarios. We go ashore in some place, they're like, yeah, come ashore. You could totally land here if you're going to go to our restaurant. That's great. Looks like you rent bikes. Can we rent a bike? No, those are only for our guests. Oh, okay, this place is a dud because you can't do anything on shore. You can only be a patron of their restaurant, and then you had to move on. So there's just a lot of things that are like that end up stacking up after a while, where you're like, okay, this is cool, but it's not as cool as you thought it was. So what are we going to do? I like what you said. People make the most of it. I do think that's how YouTube channels are born, not only because people are trying to make some more money on the side, but they have all this footage. They want to do something with their time. I mean, people get out there and they're wing foiling. That's super popular now on these sailboats. But, I mean, unless you're an avid, just love wing foiling, you don't do that every single day. It's like, okay, I wing foiled yesterday. My muscles were still sore. I did that. Maybe the wind died down. Now what? Now what do we do while we're waiting to go on to our next place? And so there's a lot of that waiting. I think that waiting can be a wonderful crucible, and I think we've really benefited from that, because it requires you to cultivate patience, that you are at the mercy of reality. And we are supposed to conform to reality, not always be fighting against it. This is what the waves are like, we stay put. This is what the wind is like, we stay put. These are the conditions, this is what we have to work with, everybody. So what are we going to do to work with it? And that's great. And you can do that day after day after day after day after day. But after a while, it does start to wear down on you as you ask now the question, am I choosing this? Or is this my lot in life?
Yeah.
If it is your lot in life, you continue to work on it until you make another plan to do something else. Like if it was my lot in life to be lost at sea on a sailboat, my plan would then be, let me find one of these harbors that I can go ashore, start getting work and building a house. But for us, what we chose is not that. What we chose is we are going to continue to stay on the sailboat and visit and discover all the treasures that we can around the world for the next 2 to 5 years. And that's a different story than when it's your lot in life.
Yeah, that's true.
When it's your lot in life, you could progress. But for us, we're not progressing. We're just moving along at the next thing, which is another one of those weird, strange phenomenons about cruising, is that you always feel like you're put in the position of the consumer tourist. I don't like being a consumer tourist indefinitely. I just don't like to be treated like that. So a lot of places you go, it is tourist-centric. They're there for the tourists. The price is reflected. The activities that are there reflected. Here, come ashore. Let me show you a chocolate farm. Okay, well, everybody around here has a chocolate farm. Everybody on all this whole string of islands have a chocolate farm. I saw a chocolate farm. You've seen one. You've seen 20 chocolate farms. Well, look, we have a waterfall. We'll take you over there. It only costs you $100. So, like, first, I don't want to spend $100 to go in your waterfall. I spend time outside all the time. I could walk to that other waterfall if I just, get ashore at that other random beach and go do that. But how many waterfalls do I have to see before I've seen all the waterfalls? I'm consuming experiences. I don't want to always be consuming experiences. If I wanted to turn my boat into something that actually produced something, I'd have to get a whole different kind of registration for my boat. It goes from being a pleasure craft into becoming a commercial craft with all the regulations and all the insurance and everything that goes along with it. Even if I just wanted to have passengers come ashore on my boat and be like, you know what, I'll take you from here over to there. I could totally do that for you. Let me count how many had. $25 each. I could take it over the view. It'd be a fun time, but there's $25 for me to get you over there. I will be breaking the law almost anywhere if I do that, because now I have passengers and I'm a commercial vessel. So I'm perpetually, and every country will remind you of that. Every time you check in, are you a pleasure craft? Commercial craft. Now, commercial, here's all the extra junk you need to fill out. Here's all the other regulations you have to abide by. You're now competing with the locals for their commercial work. But hey, if you're a pleasure craft, you're here to dump money on us. We're not here to give any type of mutual exchange other than some experiences you can have while you're with us. Like, I don't want experiences. Consumerism isn't good for me. I want to produce things. I want to be involved in things. I want to be making things. So those have been listening to our Instagram, you will notice there's been a couple of posts, just kind of scattered here and there, about boredom. How do you deal with boredom on a boat? And part of the boredom on a boat is not a lack of things to do, even though we kind of mentioned there's a lack of things to do. Because people who are long-term sailors, there's always something to fix on a boat. The big joke is sailing is really just repairing your boat in exotic locations. There's, tons to do with interacting with each other. You can play games together. You can repair your boat again. You can also find something else to do to repair your boat, or you can improve your boat. People love improving and repairing your boat. I can't tell you how many sailors fit that personality type of, I love tinkering, repairing, improving, and their boat is now their project. That's like their job. They love that. I don't love that. My boat is my vessel, so I can find treasure somewhere else.
Yeah.
But to me, it's a dead end to say I repaired the boat. The only reason I repaired the boat is so it could take me to go find treasure somewhere. The boat needing repair or needing improvement is getting in the way of me accomplishing my goal, which for many, it's actually the goal. They are accomplishing goals by repairing their boat.
And they feel freedom. They feel like they're pouring their energy into keeping their boat running, which means they're free to go anywhere they want, which is why they got into boating to begin with.
Which is another very interesting point, along with being a consumer. And this has really kind of weighed on us, is how dependent we are on land resources. There's an impression that when you're on a boat, you have freedom. But believe it or not, as much as I hate to admit it, human beings are land animals. I wish we weren't, because the idea of being alive and well and living on the sea sounds so romantic and exotic to me. If it were always flat and didn't have waves, so you could travel at any speeds that you wanted to. But we're not made for that. We're made to have soil. We're made to be on land. We're made to be in fixed positions.
Yesterday when we were at the NASA Kennedy Space Center and we were standing in line waiting for the bus, and you were talking about like, I think I would rather be someplace else. I don't want to be here, because you're feeling frustrated and stuck.
Yeah, a huge crowd of people waiting for a door to open.
Yes, yeah, that was, and I remember I said, do you remember what I said to you back?
Yeah, you criticized me for something.
Yeah. I was like, you should be more content. No, I said to you, I actually, because we are not moving at an anchorage with the waves, and I'm not trying to battle seasickness, I'm so happy to be sitting here in this line on land. My feet are on land, and I just feel like my cup is full.
Stability.
I don't think, yes, stable and on land. I can't share exactly how deeply that is a comfort to me these days. And I'm very happy that in June we are going to be selling the boat, passing it along to a family who will be taking her around the world, and we will be back on land in New Hampshire. Because my level of what it takes to be content has become, I've become so much more content with so much less.
Yeah, the simplicity is really, we're definitely taking that home with us.
Yes. Yes, it's true. It's true.
But sailing, people need to understand, the sailboat is the original RV.
Yeah.
It was just built on the water. Christopher Columbus took an RV in 1492. There's 3 RVs. And he named them. You don't have to name your RV, but you do in your boat. And he named them, and he sailed across the sea. An RV is just a fancy camping vessel. That's all it is. And sailing on a sailboat is, the convenience is you have your boat with you all the time, so it's much cheaper in the long run than if you were like Airbnb all these different places you were going and traveling by airplane. And if you like that convenience and want to take that approach. But at the end of the day, you're still camping.
And it's even more isolated because it is such an ordeal to get food,
That's right.
fuel, water, whatever on your boat. So you aren't as free as, you're only as free as the fridge holds and your freezer holds.
I think the freedom is an illusion.
Yeah, you're very dependent. And we saw that in the COVID years where so many boats were not allowed to come to shore, and they literally couldn't travel far distances because they couldn't get enough food to be able to make the journey.
Very vulnerable.
You're more vulnerable on a boat than you are on land, which I know is disappointing. It was a little disappointing to us too, but that is the reality. You have the waves also, and the water that is constantly banging the boat around much more than an RV on a road. So things are breaking at a higher degree than they would in an RV. So when a part breaks,
really
you're
good.
dependent on the company to send you the part, which is all land-based.
That depends. Yes, I want to say, just to clarify, our boat thankfully hasn't broken. So when you say to a high degree, our boat has been fantastic performed for us well.
That's been great for us because we've had probably the best boat experience, and things haven't broken, and the boat has been reliable. So I know that
and we can command it. It doesn't freak us out. None of it makes us scary. But you're 100% right. If something does break, and we've had little things here and there, you are so dependent on land resources. Yeah. It's not like I could just order something on Amazon and say, I need that part, I'll be here in 2 days. I know people that will sit there for a month waiting for a part to arrive. You want to talk about feeling stuck. When we went to Grenada, we had some warranty things. Our door wouldn't shut. And we need our door to shut. That to us was that was a safety issue, it was an everything issue. And we had to get it repaired. But the place was closed for Christmas. So we literally sat there and just bounced around Grenada anchorages for a month, 3 weeks, waiting for them to open so we could get in. And that was stuck. Felt stuck. If your car breaks down at home, you could take it to the shop, but then you get to go home. You can maybe get a loaner car, you can borrow a friend's car, maybe you have a second car. You got it. You're just waiting for your car to be repaired. When your boat breaks, it's like everything shuts down. You are stuck. But you were talking about bobbing around all the time. I know that seasickness was part of this.
Yeah, seasickness was a big unexpected blow for our whole family, is that people said you get sea legs, and it's true. We have gotten sea legs, but we realize sea legs are something, number one, they go away.
I call them a very mythical creature.
Yeah, they are mythical in that it's not that you stop feeling sick, it's just you get used to feeling sick. And I now know which seasick medicine to use. It's the one I started the journey on, and it works great for me. But working great is not the same as feeling like normal. It just means that I'm not throwing up all the time. I still feel very poorly and have to lay down regularly.
Well, you're drugged.
Yes, and that's been a real blow to me. Is sailing life is actually pretty unhealthy in terms of all the drugs you have to take to overcome the side effects of seasickness for someone like me and for our family. So my headaches have also gone up, and they are connected to seasickness. So you're taking pills for your seasickness, you're taking pills to offset the side
Not just
effects
headaches,
of seasickness.
but migraines, legit full-blown migraines.
Yes. And when things, for me, when I'm in a if I've made choices that lead to my health going consistently down, I'm ready to put everything on the table and reevaluate. Like, this has got to be some pretty awesome juice for this type of squeeze. And I'm not a fan of being on medication long term. I don't think it's healthy.
Yeah.
I personally don't think it's worth it for me.
You're right. And the place that we're going to, you end up anchoring down and be like, oh, it was so miserable to get here. This better be good. And then you're at that place, you're like, this is mediocre. The last place was better.
And here's the funny thing is whenever sailors get together, they're always like, did you do this? Or what about this? Or where are you going next? Oh, this was so much better. Oh, you didn't do that? Oh my gosh, you missed the best thing ever. And there's
Like,
terrible
shut up.
FOMO in the cruising sailing world. Constantly comparing, recommending, suggesting, often done in an attempt to be kind and helpful. But the keeping up with the Joneses is a problem in the sailing world as well.
It's real.
And then you add social media and YouTube channels to it. Well, I can make the worst, most stuck anchorage look like a dream come true if you just give me some editing skills. So that's part of the reason I feel so excited about getting back to land, because sailing life has given me more clarity about what I want to create, what I want to do, what my personal mission is. And I'm so happy it doesn't include sailing. I'm just so delighted about that.
And I found myself posting less and less on social. I would still post up stories of like little random things on Instagram, but posting less and less because I just felt uninspired. I'm like, this is not an inspiring spot. Yeah, if you want to look at it in a monastic way, be like, oh, I found treasures in the smallest snail, and I was studying this cute little hermit crab as he crawled across this thing. Like, yeah, you could do all that, but I'm not going to make video stories about that. In South Africa, I felt very inspired. So many different stories that we were enjoying, and even in St. Helena. But as time went on, it was like, okay, this is not interesting to me.
We were captivated by St. Helena, Fernando de Noronha, South Africa, Martinique, Guadeloupe, Dominican Republic, Bahamas.
Bahamas water.
Yes. I think if you have a YouTube channel, you are forced to find something captivating about everywhere you go, because you have to churn out that video a week. And so you end up making things look better than they are for the sake of the audience.
Which makes sense, because you're an entertainment channel. You're not.
Right. You're not a reflective necessarily. For us, we went into this saying we want to find treasure in new places and new faces.
That's right. And we met so many neat people.
We have.
Yeah.
But I've also noticed I can't showcase the new faces because that's part of the privacy of friendship.
100%.
I'm not going to put a video in
100%.
the face of our friends while we're having an amazing Resurrection Sunday art studio and presentation message.
100%. And it's nobody else's freaking business. And that's another thing I don't like about social media, is that we're so tempted to bring all of our private business to the world, as if followers are demanding it. I know anybody listening to this would be like, yeah, even if I'm a follower, I'm not demanding that. And like, I know you're not. But there is this always, and everybody understands it, a secret requirement that to be successful in social, you have to bring your private things out and make them public.
And most successful influencers do that. They do share private things publicly.
Yeah,
that's part of the recipe.
The filter's not there that may need to be, but of course it makes what you're sharing less interesting, especially if you need interesting content.
Yes, exactly.
But on the seasick thing, which is interesting, is that we knew we all got seasick. We knew that. And what I've learned from sailors is that everybody gets seasick. I can't say everybody. I want to say 90%. If everybody we've talked to about seasickness, people get seasick. Conditions are right, they get seasick.
Yep.
And not just like wicked bad conditions, but just certain conditions. And everybody takes medicine or finds a way to mitigate it. Everybody does. And it's not just, and this is a key part, so there's so many things that we prepared for really well. The things we didn't prepare for, we discovered nobody was talking about, like being bored. Nobody's bored on a YouTube channel. So, but the seasickness was, I thought when we pulled into an anchorage, in general, the rule, not the exception, the rule is that an anchorage would be very calm, flat water. You'd just be like you parked your car in a parking spot. I didn't realize that when you come in on anchorage, and I would never have known this even if I was only sailing for a week and just rented a boat for a week and did a little charter. You have to live on the boat to discover this. Most of the anchorages you go to are not calm. They still have waves. They still jump about. The weather still blows through. You're still constantly vigilant about making sure the boat is intact, you're not swinging too hard, the anchor is down, and the swells. We've had places where blocked from the wind beautifully. We're like, this is awesome, blocked from the wind. The wind would blow the water around the island, and it would be blowing it like, in one direction, and the water would swirl around the island, turn 90 degrees, and create a swelling wave coming right at our boat all night long, even though we had no wind. Weird. Mother Nature has a wild way of directing water and wind. But that's uncomfortable. And when you have to deal with that frequently, it's like, again, you start asking your question, am I choosing to be out here, or is this just my lot in life? Well, for us, we're choosing to be out here. It's like, is this what you're choosing? Is this what you want your life to look like? Is this comfortable for you? And are you getting out of it what you're putting into it? And the answer is no, I'm putting a lot more into it than I'm getting out of it. Yeah. And that's one of the things that we chose to change. Why we're selling the boat and moving off of it. We feel like we're getting out of it what we wanted to get out of it. Mm-hmm. But to continue to go forward would be, we're going to continue to squeeze a lot for a little bit of juice, and that little bit of juice isn't worth it. We can, if we wanted to, plot out places that we don't even want to travel for the next 2 years at least, so we can really unwind from all of this. But if we did travel again, I want to find places. This is where we want to go. This is how we want to plan it. This is what our budget is. We're going to stay here, and we're going to see it. And we're just going to go in and saturate in that beautiful experience, and we're going to go home again. We're not going to take 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, a year to travel there to discover that, and all that would be required to put into it to get there. So
that's what we realize, is to go explore Europe like we like to travel, which is to really immerse in a place. We have to put in months to get there and months to get back. And we'd rather...
And you're only allowed to be there for 3 months because of European rules.
Exactly. So if we really wanted to travel like the boys are, and you guys are excited to go to Japan, we'd rather be there for a month of immersion in one place where you're walking around and discovering local food, the local people and culture, and you're not stuck on a boat in a marina where you're trying to get to shore as best you can.
That's right. We have a different ways we think we could be more strategic in our treasure hunting.
Yes, and having the boys has been a big part of this decision too, but you wanted to share something.
I want to share something too. I think part of it too is, this ties back to what I was saying before, and it's what I'm looking forward to, is about being a consumer. I'm tired of being a consumer. I want to be a producer. And we have been producing things on the boat, obviously. You've been painting. I continue to record my Bible stories with the boys. But, getting those uploaded and getting that going, it's not at a point where those are ready to be released yet. But we're producing some things, but it just doesn't feel like enough. I want to have my own space, my own studio, my own office, and really dedicate more time to it.
Well, the sailing life works against production of anything other than sailing, because you're working against the weather, the swell, the discomfort,
100%
the interruptions.
Right. 100%.
It's a very hard place to produce.
So I was talking to a friend of mine online. They're in life real friend, but we were communicating online, obviously, because they're not on the boat. And we were talking about getting off the boat and different aspects of what that looks like and what you didn't expect. And she was saying, let me guess. Ollie wants to stay on the boat, and Finn does not want to stay on the boat. And I'm like, it's actually the other way around. Finn loves the boat. He would stay on it probably forever. He loves having his space. Ollie wants to get off the boat. He's ready to go. I don't think he's ever liked it to begin with, but this is where we're at.
Well,
Ollie loves the water, and then we discover there's sharks in the water. And then he's like, can somebody come in the water with me? He used to be so fearless of jumping in the water, and then we saw sharks show up, and he's like, I don't think I'm just going to jump in like that anymore. But this is what I wrote. She wrote to me. She goes, that so much of this life seems romanticized. She's speaking about it as a person from shore. She actually lives in Hawaii, so she sees how things are romanticized about locations and places. She says people are thinking, it must be like vacation all the time to be on a boat. And I'm like, it's interesting you say that. So this is what I wrote back. I said, what's interesting about vacationing all the time? Even if it were like that, it doesn't feel productive. Vacation is escapist. There's a place for it, but the return to good work should be sweet. One of my struggles is feeling isolated from productivity. It's perpetual maintenance and consumerism that easily lacks a purpose. Being on a tropical island for a week is glorious. Exploring these waters, like in the Bahamas, for a month is a luxury. But then what? Life is chugging on, and I don't want to miss it. I think the average person doesn't realize how lovely it is to have work to do. Not just for money, but to create and to produce and to assist in it.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. That rings so true for me.
And I feel like being on the boat, we even talked about this, if the boat was a part-time thing, it would cost so much more and be so much more responsibility, and I would hate it. So I don't want to do that. Just want to say.
Okay, I won't do that.
But in the most ideal world, if it was a part-time thing, like 2 months out of the year, let's say in the heart of winter when it's snowing and brutally overcast in New Hampshire, and the times that we don't like to be there, if that's when I got on the boat, and the boat was all ready for me and perfect, and I was just going to be in the Bahamas for a couple of months, exploring a couple of places where I was catching fish and having a good time, places that we loved to dive and swim, and I totally would dig it. 2 months, I would dig it. But full time, don't dig it. It's not my place. It's not home to me.
It creates a nomad approach to life, which has become is a super sexy way to think about life based on the way it's portrayed,
it
the
is so
digital
nomadic.
nomads. But we've noticed that even the families who do this full time, it ends up affecting the children and the family culture into this almost a detachment from the groundedness of community and land life. And we do not want to train our children in that nomadic lifestyle for the rest of their lives.
That's right.
If we had to do it, if we couldn't homeschool our boys unless we did it, I can see this being a really good way to go. But because we have the incredible luxury of homeschooling in our home country, and we have work that we know we want to do that is best done on land.
The community we want to build, influence we want to have.
We haven't found the sailing life to offer what we expected or hoped it would give us.
That's right.
And I haven't even touched on the huge disappointment it has been to try and paint while on the boat. It's very difficult when you're seasick. And the conditions for plein air painting, wind and sun, make it extra challenging. I cannot put out my umbrella to shield my watercolor paints from the sun when the wind's blowing. So most of the time I cannot plein air on the boat unless I'm underneath the hanging area, which means I'm not seeing what I want to paint from the boat as easily. I can go to land and paint, but many places we go, we don't know if it's safe enough for me to be there by myself because we don't know the culture. We're brand new to the area. So it's definitely been a different experience than I had hoped for plein air painting. I'm still painting almost every day, and I'm really proud of what I'm creating, but it is not the types of painting I expected to do.
I can't imagine having to immerse in a painting and bring all your creative energy to it, all that entails, and also be thinking with the other side of your mind, am I about to be mugged?
Thank you. That is very hard.
I don't know how any creative person can do that.
It doesn't actually create very good paintings
No.
or much safety because you're not doing either one well.
I would say that painting looks rushed.
That painting looks afraid.
So tropical, but also afraid. Was there a hurricane at the time?
I've also.
I wanted to say, I love that you said nomadic because it is a nomadic life. And I want to say that it seems different to me than you hear about, people who live in the military, who they travel, they have to end up taking their families to different places in the world and the effect that it has on kids. Mm-hmm. Even missionaries, so they go out and they're spending so much of their time and the development in a foreign country is different from their homeland. And the effect that it has on them. Those things are real. Even like when missionaries and go through training, what's going to be like to adapt to another culture, and also training what's it going to be like to come back in, and all the culture shock that is involved in it. And I want to say that if you're nomadic, that is a different experience than this. I want to say that. For those things, you are immersing in a different culture for quite a while. It might be 6 months, might be a year, might be 10 years.
Culture.
The same culture for a long period of time. But when you're sailing, you're not. You're just tiptoeing over cultures. The culture that your kids and you are immersed in is the culture you're developing on the boat. And you're leaving the boat in your culture, and you're just experiencing a little bit of some other place just during the day, and then you come back and you're in your own culture. And so it doesn't feel like there's any type of I don't want to say detox, that's the right word, but adapting that's necessary. The adapting to me is going from living simply to then learning how to say no when you're just overwhelmed with the temptation to be a consumerist or make things nicer or to compete with other people. That to me is the thing that, the things I want to carry with me. The gratitude are things I want to carry with me. But to be a nomad, I have so much value in time and place. I love place. It's not just God came into the world. He came and touched this spot here in Bethel. And Jacob built a little pillar of stones there to mark it. God doesn't love me because I'm just a human. He loves me because I'm this human. I'm this person. He loves Dale sitting here on this bay in Cape Canaveral. And time and place mean a lot to me. And the ability to be grounded in it means a lot to me. So the nomadic life, again, if that was my lot in life and I had to run because I was in a war-torn country, I know God would be with me and I would have to address it. When Israel was carried off to be exiled in Babylon and Persia, they just longed and longed and longed to be back home again.
Or when they were nomadic in the wilderness, which interestingly enough was judgment. It was God's judgment on them.
It's excellent.
It wasn't like, woohoo, now you get to be a digital nomad in the wilderness of Sinai.
And some people may adapt to that. I think I could imagine that if you had a bunch of friends, your good friends, it could be enjoyable for you if you're like 22 years old for a season. But you're right, and the Sinai thing is really funny because it was only supposed to take them like a week or two to get to the promised land. But because they had
murmuring against Moses,
so many issues in their heart, God said, you're just going to wander around circles till you're all dead and your kids are going to go to the promised land.
So they were nomads for 40 years, but it was a judgment. And that's kind of my point, is that I can see how being a nomad, it actually cuts you off from so many good gifts from God that God wants to bring. And for us,
we have a choice.
We do have a choice. And I'm very grateful for that. And I have a lot of respect for the people who do this for more than a year, for multiple years. I also want to say we would need to do a whole nother podcast episode about how much we've learned about each other and what we do and what we don't like.
And
because
I'm
the
grateful.
boating life has made me realize more of what we like. Outings. Our family doesn't like lots of outings. Some families love it. They think it's the best thing ever to go on a tour and look at a rum factory. And that's not our family's cup of tea.
Yeah, you see one and that's it. We already saw that a couple years ago, so we don't need to see another rum factory.
I think some families just want to see all the rum factories or something. At least from their Instagram, it looks like that.
For the tasting room. They just want the tasting room. I'm glad you say that, and I would say if I were to counsel myself, looking back with 2020 vision, it's always easy to look back. There's a lot of things in my life I do differently. Let me just say, there's a lot of things.
What'd you do,
I
Lady
review them
Gray?
all the time to say, what does my wisdom today
we do.
tell me about the past?
We do, and we say we wouldn't have bought that, we wouldn't have gone there. What about Lady Gray? This would be a good
If I were to
place
look back
stop.
and advise myself, I would say, would you take up sailing? Would you do this? And I would look at myself, I'd say, you need to sit down, sir. And we're going to sit here and we're going to talk about this. Don't do it. Don't do it. However, what I've learned along this journey has brought so much focus and clarity on what we want to do next that I think I needed this journey to get there.
Wow.
I think this journey has helped refine me, refine our family, and it will leave an indelible mark on us.
I love that you are brave enough to say you made a choice that you wouldn't have done if you could do it again. Because there's a lot of people who just want to say, no regrets, everything happens for a reason. And I'm so glad you're not like that.
No, but God says, sailing meant evil against me, but God meant it unto good. I want to say, the ocean had hated me. No, I want to say, from everybody who built our boat, marvelous. The boat itself, marvelous. The ocean is a marvelous place. The places that we visited, in and of themselves, are all marvelous places. But none of them are home. And I think I just want to get back home. There are other longings that I have that are bigger and different than this. And I'm so excited about seizing the opportunities. They may not be as sexy. People won't follow you on Instagram because you're like sitting at home.
It's true.
Unless you have like goats and stuff you could film. They're hilarious. But I think it's going to be so meaningful for our family to say, hey, that sailing, we're going to look back on it, and I'm hoping that the high points will be what lives long in our memory. I want to remember all those high points, things that were great, and I want to say I'm grateful for them. But the juice wasn't worth the squeeze.
This is most likely our last Lady Grey podcast. We will be transitioning back to Back Porch with a renewed focus on some of the clarity that you've been given.
Yeah.
Talking about the Bible and talking about politics. And we're looking forward to sharing that with you with that kind of focus in the future. So join us next time as we continue to share our conversations from land. This is our last time on Lady Grey speaking to you. We are so proud of ourselves for doing this, and like Dale said, we probably wouldn't do it again. That's the honest truth. If you'd like to share a question, even about our sailing life, or feedback, you can email us directly at hello@dalefincher.com or hello@jonalynfincher.com. And we'll catch you next time on Back Porch.